quick update. So for those of you who are not familiar with client success, I'm here to tell you a little bit more about us. So client success is a customer success management solution. So we are a product that helps customer success teams manage their customers from what we say, from new to renew, that entire post-initial life cycle management. So think about how you're engaging with your customers, having customer health, automations, that entire customer journey completely operationalized through our software. So if you're on the market for a product like client success and you're interested in learning more, please head over to our website. You can go request a demo. If you'd like to connect with me and learn more about how I'm using it with our team, happy to share that information, but would be thrilled and honored to speak with you a little bit more about how we can help you and your teams. Okay. We also have an end of summer sale going on. I know this feels like a little bit of a commercial. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Our end of summer sale. So if you complete a demo by August 31st, I know that is Thursday. So you got 2 days to go get on one of our salesperson's schedule. If you book a demo and complete that demo by the 31st, you qualify for a 20% discount on the product. So I know that teams right now, budgets are being cut. Everyone is watching every penny. I get that. We want to help. So this is to help incentivize this, make it a little bit easier for you and your teams to procure technology like client success to help you. So if you're interested, head over to info.clientsuccess.com/20-off. And that way you'll be able to book that demo and qualify for that discount. If you are a customer success leader and you have not heard of CS100, allow me to introduce you to the best, most exciting, intimate, immersive customer success leadership summit, CS100. So this is a client success summit. It is not for client success customers, though. This is an industry conference. It is really focused on CS leaders. And I'll tell you, I had been attending customer success events for years. And my first time attending CS100 was last year. And I got to tell you, it met every expectation that anyone ever presented to me. And I was there as an employee. So I was working and it was still amazing. Beyond the content and the speakers, just the ability to network with a backdrop of Sundance, Utah, and have really fantastic activities, really connecting in an intimate way, sharing ideas, learning, building real relationships. I'll tell you, like, it was just unlike any other event I have ever attended professionally. And I mean, even when I was in marketing. So if you are interested in learning more about attending CS100, if you are a leader and you're interested, I am happy to share my discount code with you, my personal discount code with you. Private message me in the chat or shoot me a note on LinkedIn and I will give you that promo code. You'll save over $500 in booking your ticket. The event is coming up. It's September 25th to the 27th. My birthday is the 23rd, so it's kind of like my birthday party. So come celebrate with me in Sundance, but it'll be an amazing event. Would love for you all to join us. I'm almost done, I promise. So the last thing I think I want to share with you today is that we do have our State of Customer Success survey, which is quickly closing out. This is our annual survey that we send out to everyone to make sure that we're collecting all of the insights and trends around customer success each and every year. There's stuff about earnings and compensation to team structure, focuses, trends. And then we take all of that insight that we've collected and we share it back out with the community. So the more folks that we get completing the survey, the more robust the insights are that we share. So if you can spare 15 minutes for me, please, I would really appreciate it. I will drop the survey link in the chat. We'll send it as part of the follow-up here as well. But if you could, please complete the survey. That way we have more data to share with you all. Now, why you're all here. So I'm done with my little commercial. We are here for the last installation. This is so sad, of our Customer Success Thought Leader Summer Webinar Series. This has been, I know it is like, I'm so sad. This has been an amazing series. For those of you who have joined us along the way, for all of these fantastic speakers, thank you so much. I know giving us an hour each week is not insignificant. So we really are appreciative of that. We have had fantastic speakers, starting with Jan Young. June 20th was the very first one we kicked off. And I am honored to host my dear friend today, Swati, who's going to talk to us all about hiring and the landscape around interviewing and finding your next job in customer success. And so I am so excited. Swati, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be so fantastic. I know, obviously the job market is so interesting right now. I know that you're going to share some positive news about what you're seeing and what's going on there, but I know you've got a lot of folks who are trying to transition into customer success, which feels like an interesting time to be doing that. You've got folks who unfortunately have been displaced from jobs who are looking, right? You still have organizations who are starting to hire again. And so I think the timeliness of you today and this content is so relevant, and we're so excited to host you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk about this, and I'm so excited about the Q&A part too. Like, please ask questions. It's so fun to really make sure that I'm answering like people's specific challenges.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'm going to go backstage and I will be here in the chat, making sure that I'm watching what's going on over here. You can go ahead and start sharing your screen and we'll give you the floor to run the presentation, and then I'll be back at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to do that now. Okay.
Looks
Is
great.
everything okay? Okay,
it
great.
Looks perfect. I'm going away.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Swati. I'm the founder of Melo Associates. Thank you so much for being here today. And today we're going to talk all about the job search. So as Christy said, there's, people transitioning into customer success, unfortunately, people that have been impacted, and some people are just looking for a change. So hopefully today, the information I provide will give you nuggets to, leave and take valuable action right away. And that's really the goal. We want to start off with, if you can start saying in the chat, if you are actively looking, passively looking, if you're transitioning into customer success, or if you're hiring and growing your team right now. All of that information would be really, really helpful if you can start putting that in the chat, and I'll get started. So a little bit about me. So like I said, I'm the founder of Melo Associates. I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I did my, background in psychology, communication, HR. So really, really focused in human resources. And I'm going to talk about why this topic is so important to me, but wanted to give you a little bit about, how I operate and a little bit about my background. So I have a background in human resources, organization development, training, and of course, recruitment, which I was like, almost forgot to say recruitment. Of course, recruitment, and everything around, what I'm really, really focused on is taking action, moving forward. I actually created a personal brand in February, and it's all around personal development and professional development, and really being able to get started and take step-by-step steps to really move forward. Everything is really process oriented, and hoping I can give you a process today that'll help continue to move you forward. So what does Melo Associates do? If you don't know what we do, we focus in customer success and professional services recruitment. We do individual contributors and executive search, so all levels, full-time hires, and then we also have a CCO program, so interim, fractional, and advisory work. And we're really focused on personalized service, building community. We love adding value to the community and helping our community, sharing industry knowledge, thought leadership. And of course, when we're recruiting, we really focus on that mutual fit. Our goal is to make sure that we can get the candidate in a better place, and also help the client reach their internal goals. We've been featured in a lot of different CS publications and national publications as well. So I want to share a little bit about my story today. And so something that many people don't know is this topic is so important to me. So I've like personally transitioned my career through 4 different industries. So I've been where everyone is, right? If you're transitioning industries, I've been there. I know it's really challenging. I know it's a grind, and but I know it's all possible. And if you really want to get into a new space, if you want to get into customer success, it's possible. And I'm really excited to share some tips today. This conversation is going to be so valuable because hopefully I'm going to give you a step-by-step process on things to think about that maybe you haven't. A lot of people just kind of jump into action and jump into applying or jump into reaching out their network. And I want to really talk about all the things to do before that, and then how to also, apply and network. And but I'm going to first start off with my story and how I made my first transition, and then talk about it step by step, so you can kind of see how I implemented this in my life. And it's going to be my first transition that I made. So the three steps that we're going to, talk about today are preparation, resume and LinkedIn, or basically your social platforms, and then applying and networking. So I'm going to start with preparation and the first step in my story. So when I graduated from my master's program, I got my first job in North Carolina. I was an HR generalist in North Carolina and in a manufacturing facility in a really small town. There were a lot of changes. When I was there as my first job, I was away from everyone I knew and everything I knew. And over time, I realized this wasn't, the long-term fit for me. Once I realized that, I wanted to, realize I wanted to move back to Chicago, and I wanted to go into organization development. Once I made this decision, that's when the real work started. And that's what I really want to talk to you about. So preparation, right? So once I left my position, decided to move into organization development and came back home to Chicago, that's when all the work started. So I had to start researching. I was like, okay, I want to do organization development and I want to stay in Chicago. What does that mean? What companies have organization development? What company sizes have organization development? What industries are interesting? What does organization development even mean when it's related to HR? So even though HR and organization development are similar, so HR, human resources, organization development, if you're not fully familiar with that, that includes like employee engagement, performance management, training, org structures. So that is what I want, talent, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I really had to do research on companies, do research on Chicago, understand and learn the language, right? Even though they're related, HR and organization development, and sometimes under the same umbrella, there's still very different language that I needed to learn. And I needed to understand, okay, what do I already know that's similar, and what do I need to learn? And once I was able to do that, then I was really able to move into the second part, and that was the resume and LinkedIn, right? So once I was like, okay, I know that I need a junior role in organization development. I know that I want to be in Chicago area. I'm learning the language and I'm learning how to convey my experience using the organization development language and being able to explain, hey, this is what I know and this is what I need to learn. Now I need to share my story. So I need to first understand how to pitch myself, right? Talk about my story. I was in HR. I want to move into organization development, why I wanted to do this, how my skills are similar and aligned, and really focusing on, why I want to make this change and why this is a good change for me, right? Once I know how to say that, I also have to write that down. I have to write that down on my LinkedIn. I have to write that down on my resume. I have to make sure that it's consistent across all platforms. So that really is the second step, making sure that my story is conveyed really clearly. And we're going to talk more about this, but I kind of want to show you how I did this in my life. So I wanted to move from HR to organization development. I wanted to, once I kind of figured out how to do that, like what I wanted to do, and how to explain that, I had to write that down and practice my pitch. And then the last step is apply and network, right? So I ended up networking and applying for 7 months, right? So once you have everything written down on your LinkedIn and your resume and you have your elevator pitch, right? Now it's time to talk to your network. Be transparent with your network about, hey, this is what I was doing. This is what I want to do. This is what skills I have, and this is what I need to learn, right? Being really specific. It's so important. All of that research, this all comes back to the original research. What kind of criteria do you want, right? What kind of company size? What kind of industry? What leveling do you think you can do, right? Are you looking for remote, on-site, or hybrid, right? All of these questions we actually ask our candidates on every candidate call as well. But it's really important to build your criteria and then tell your story. People want to help. People love helping people and giving them their time if they're adding value. But you need to be really clear on what you want, right? So being very transparent, researching, that research comes in handy. Okay, I'm targeting these companies. Who do I know or who in my network might have a connection at that company, right? Ask for very specific introductions. Ask for informational interviews. Be prepared when you're doing those informational interviews. And then finally, start applying and reaching out, right? So applying and reaching out really is the last step. And so when I actually had gotten a coach for a little while, and one of the things that the coach taught me was network with everybody. And this kind of comes back to my story. So when I was networking with everybody, I was contracting, because I needed a job, and I was working in the suburbs, and I had asked one of my mentors, who was an executive HR at the time, to come and get lunch with me. And it was in his area. And I was like, I really want to ask you questions about what I want to do next. And so we did. We talked about how I wanted to move into organization development. And, something I say about job searching, whether you're transitioning, you're leveling up, or, you've been impacted and you just need a new position, it's a lot of hard work, a little bit of timing, a little bit of luck. And the reason I say that is because it's you just need to keep going until something lands. And like now, like Christy said, things are definitely getting better. And I'm going to share a little bit more about the market a little bit in a bit. But it's a lot of hard work, a little bit of timing, a little bit of luck. And the reason I say that is, so I was at lunch with my mentor talking about how I really wanted to go to organization development. This is 1 year out of grad school, Swati, with 1 year of HR experience. And organization development is a very more of an experienced industry, right? You need at least 5 or 10 years to kind of get in there. There aren't that many junior roles. And I couldn't find that many roles. And so as I was talking to my mentor, he was like, it's going to be challenging. There aren't that many roles out there. You really need 5 years of experience. And I was like, look, I've done a lot of research. There isn't really anything else I want to do. And I was talking so passionately about how I want to go into organization development at the time. And like I said, this was my first transition. And a woman behind me, so we're sitting at Panera, and a woman behind me goes, hey, would you be interested in an organization development project coordinator role? And I turned around and I was like, yes. Like, who are you? It was like the funniest moment, because she was like, I'm a recruiter. And, I work for this company called Hospira, and I'm here at lunch with my family on my day off. And I overheard you, and I'm interviewing for this role right now. And I mean, that was pure luck, right? It was pure timing. If I wasn't there asking, networking, using my lunchtime to network and being out there, I wouldn't have been there, been there at the right time. She was like, send me your resume. So I went back, I sent her my resume, went back to my desk, and I interviewed for the position, and I ended up getting it. So I landed at Hospira, and it was such an exciting moment for me because I was able to transition my first time into my career, and I didn't give up. It ended up taking me 7 months overall to get that, but I was able to get it, and it was a lot of hard work and a lot of time, but it was really exciting. And I really want to kind of share the different steps a little bit more in detail with you. But this was a little bit about my story, and hopefully, it's helpful and provides a little bit of hope, because we all can get to where we want to go. It's going to take, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So the 3 steps we were talking about was preparation, resume, and LinkedIn, and applying a network. So we're going to go step by step. So when we're talking about preparation, right, the first step is research. So once you make a decision that you either want to transition into customer success, you want to level up in customer success, like get a new role, you want to change industries, or you've been impacted, unfortunately, and you need to get a new role, right? The first thing that one should do is start researching, right? Figuring out, okay, what did I like about my previous positions? What did I not like? What kind of company size am I targeting? What verticals are exciting to me? What was my favorite customer base? Are there certain companies that I'm really excited about, or certain products that I really want to work in? Does location matter to me, right? Do I want remote? Do I want to be on site? Do I want to relocate, right? A lot of research and researching on leveling, right? If you're transitioning, understanding, and you have work experience, really understanding, okay, what level makes sense for me? I know I'm transitioning to a new industry, but I'm bringing some experience, researching, like reading a ton of job descriptions. So something I say to a lot of people is that, they're read 10, 15 job descriptions and don't always apply right away, right? It's about reading them and understanding, the lens of like, okay, this is these types of customer success positions. This is another one. As we know, CS positions are different in every company. So it's really important to understand what kind of CS position you want, right? What kind of CS do you want to do? What's the org structure look like, right? And doing all of this in your research is a great starting point, right? And the second step is learning the language. And even if you've been in the industry for years, right? But if you're trying to get from a CSM role to a manager role, or a manager role to a director or VP role, right? It's really important to learn the language of if it's a new industry, if it's a new function, if you're moving into customer success for the first time, or even if you're moving into leadership, right? What are some of the different metrics, or what are some of the different things that they're responsible for that maybe you weren't as an individual contributor? So when I say learn the language, it's not just the industry language, but it's also leveling, and it's also understanding what the responsibilities are, understanding what you have and what you don't have, right? And that it's really important to be really clear on that. Most people do not want a position. And honestly, I don't know if you should get a position where you know 100% of the job, right? You want to learn, you want to continue to grow. And so if you know 100% of the job, then you're probably overqualified. It's really important to, see, okay, this is what I know, but this is what I can learn. And convey that when you're having conversations, being really clear and being like, hey, I want to learn, I want to continue to grow. And so I think when you're looking at job descriptions, making sure that you have room to grow, but you can also articulate what you know and what you don't know. So you can explain that in conversations and be very clear about that, right? And you're also showing initiative. You're showing initiative that um, you know what you need to learn, but you also know what you bring to the table and how you can add value to the organization. You also want to grow with your organization, right? Companies want you to continue to grow with your organization and want you to stay and get into more leadership positions. And I think by showing that you want to learn with them and grow with them, I think that's already extremely positive sign. So the second step is resume and LinkedIn. So it is incredibly, incredibly important to have a strong social media presence, but also making sure that you're explaining your story really well. In the space of customer success and professional services, resumes and LinkedIn is our biggest social media source, right? So, and that's why we're talking about that today. But in general, you want to be able to tell your story, written and verbally, right? Once you've done all this research and once you've figured out all of this criteria, it's really, really important to make sure that you can explain it and explain it in a way where you can talk about, this is what I did, this is what I want to do, and this is how I can add value. And it's really important to kind of hit all of those points. I personally love the top section of your resume, the summary. I know some people, like it, some people don't like it. You're going to find a different opinion everywhere you go. But it's really, really important to, when you are sharing your story on the summary, it sets the whole tone of the resume, right? Talking about, this is my experience. This is the kind of professional I am. I'm transitioning to CS, or I'm looking, to grow and up level to a manager level or an executive position. And this is me in a summary. And so when they're looking at your resume, they know what they're looking for. They're like, okay, I need to look at this person because this is why they're applying this position. This is what they want me to focus on. That's why I think the resume is so important. And the same thing with your LinkedIn, right? You want to make sure that your story is consistent. So across your resume and across your LinkedIn and your verbal pitch, they're all consistent. So no matter who you're speaking with or what they see the same thing that you're talking to them about, right? It's really important to share that. But then again, right, if you are targeting a couple different industries, if you're targeting, maybe a startup and a mid-sized company, right, that can be a little different. What you're sharing could be a little different. So that's why variations of resume, I am a huge fan of, right? If you're targeting two different industries and you have different experiences, that relate to those industries, you want to highlight that on your resume. And one of the biggest things that I like to share about a resume is when you're going into a new position, it is so important to share the most relevant bullet points, right? So on a resume, like we're looking at it for like 30 seconds to be realistic, right? We're looking at thousands of resumes. And so when I'm skimming, I'm looking at your first couple of bullet points under each position. You want to make that stick out. You want that to be the most relevant, right? It doesn't have to be the biggest thing you did at work or, the biggest cost savings you had or your biggest project. It has to be what's most relevant to the new position you're applying for, right? So because that's what they want to see. They want to see what skills and experience do you have that's most related. And so you can definitely have your biggest projects and your biggest cost savings and all of that, of course, on your resume and LinkedIn. But you want to make sure that whatever you're sharing is your first few bullet points on your LinkedIn and on your resume is most related. And that's why I'm such a big fan of variations of resumes, because sometimes different industries or different positions value different things, right? If you're an enterprise CSM versus a scale CSM, those are different things. They're going to value different skills and experiences. So you want to, potentially change that, change the order of the bullet points when you're doing that. But ensuring consistency and tailoring is really important. But you want to make sure you have a very consistent story. This is what I've been doing. This is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. And this is how I can add value. So the last step is applying and networking. So we've already done all of this preparation, right? We've created a consistent story. Now we're ready to apply and network, right? I talk to so many people that kind of jump into applying and networking and, reaching out to their network. And, to make the conversations in your network fruitful, to make these applications fruitful, I believe it's incredibly important to do steps 1 and 2 to make sure that you are fully prepared, you have a really strong story, you can really convey what you're looking for. So when you're applying a network, you're ready to have these conversations, you're ready to take action. So I would say the first step is being really transparent with your network, right? Being really clear on this is what's going on, this is what I'm looking for, this is why, and being able to reach out to them with a lot of prepared information. So once they start looking at your LinkedIn again or your resume again, they see the story, they see what you're talking about. So it's just supporting what you're saying, right? Something I say a lot is like you can't you have to connect the dots for other people, right? When you want to change industries or you're really passionate about a product, or you want to level up and you're ready to level up, right? You need to share that story and being like, I am ready for this next position. I am ready to move industries. I am ready to work on this product, right? I have a personal passion for this because of X, Y, Z, right? It is really important to connect the dots for other people and share your story. People are busy and they want to help, but you need to be really transparent and be like, this is what I'm looking for. And research and ask for informational interviews, right? This kind of goes back to a lot of the research that you've done, but as you continue to network and talk to people, you're going to ask for additional conversations. You're going to ask for additional people that you can speak with, and you're going to research and talk to them about, what their background is, what their story is, ask for informational interviews, right? If there's companies you're interested in or industries or products you're interested in, right? Ask to learn, right? Everything, every conversation is not about, getting that next role. It's about learning and growing. And the more conversations you have, the closer you're going to get to that position that you're going to get really excited about. And, focus on what you're excited about, right? When you're applying and you're reaching out, it's so important to go back to that original criteria that we're talking about and making sure that you are excited about these things, right? A lot of people that we speak with, you know, like are very open and try to be flexible, right? But the person that's going to get the job is going to be really excited about the product. They're showing initiative because this is what they want to do. And it's very transparent. When hiring managers and HR professionals are in, hundreds of interviews, the person that's truly really excited and focusing on what they really want to do, it shines through. And so I really want to encourage everyone to focus on what they're excited about and focus on what they want to do in their next position, whether it's a product or industry, or position. It's really important to focus on that. And we were talking a little bit about the market, right? I know it's been a challenging year. We've talked to so many people that unfortunately have been impacted or need to find a new position, and have had a lot of individual conversations like this all year. And it's getting better. So, it's where the market is starting to move. It is getting better. People are landing positions. Some unfortunately have looked for a longer time than we'd like, but people are landing. People are getting what they're excited about. And I would just encourage you that, things are getting better. So just stay positive and have a good outlook, and apply and reach out and make sure that's the last step. It's really important that that's the last step after you've done all of these different steps, to make sure that you are fully prepared for these conversations and you're bringing your best foot forward. Excuse me. We get a lot of questions also about, what to ask in an interview, right? And one of the things that I would say is, if you are an experienced professional, right, thinking about, what are things that I wish I would have asked, before I got in a previous position, what I want to make sure, like either about values, culture, management style, things that you're like, I wish this was better in my next position. And that is really, really important, because you're making sure you're asking the questions that are important to you. These are general questions that I think are really great, asking about team culture versus company culture, management style, organizational structure, what are your expectations of first 90 days, growth, training, right? Really focused on what your role is going to be and how you're going to continue to grow with the company, and what you're looking for and what you need to grow, what kind of support you need to grow. I think a lot of those questions really show you what kind of values the organization has, their style, how they grow people at the company, and how you're going to work with them day to day, which obviously is so important because we spend so much time at work. But that is one of the things I get asked a lot. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that today. And then the couple of things I wanted to say is, if you are looking actively or passively, please upload your resume on our site. All you need to do is go to meloassociates.com and go all the way to the bottom, click on the submit your resume, make sure your pop-up is enabled, and an email box will pop up, and you can email your resume to our database, and that way we have it. So if there is an opportunity that comes up that we think you're a fit for, we'll reach out to you. This does not mean that we're going to automatically call you. This just means that we have your information in our system. And if we have something that could be a fit, we'll reach out. But you're welcome to reach out to us if you would like a call, info@meloassociates.com. Or you can also just connect with us on our Let's Connect section of our website, whether you are growing your team, hiring, looking for a position, just have some questions that you want to answer. We really try to have a lot of conversations. We want to continue to add value to the community and help as many people as we can. So if you just have questions, you just need a recruiter's perspective, like, we're happy to be here. We're here for the community. So please reach out. Let us know what you need. And I'm really excited to kind of move on to the next part of the session today. And, we can dive into, the Q&A, or I know, and I'm going to actually hand it back to Christy. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think, as everyone's navigating this time, right, they're trying to just make sure that they get it right. They know that they're not going to have many at bats, right? You can only apply to a job once. And so you want to obviously lead with your best foot forward. So we do have questions in the chat, which is great. But I think I want to go through a few things that I'm hearing specifically from the community as well, because I think that you're probably the best suited to answer some of these. So obviously, listen, I think that there's many folks who are not super familiar with working with recruitment firms or working with a company like Melo. So I think I would love to hear you just mention kind of what are the advantages of working with a firm like yours as opposed to just applying for jobs directly?
Yeah. So what we do, I mean, what would be really helpful is when we have a lot of conversations. I definitely say we're a little different. So when people come and talk to us, right, we go through their entire background. We ask them a lot of tough questions and that maybe they haven't thought about. So we definitely give them some nuggets to think about. But also when they're working with us, if we have a position that matches their background, I mean, we tell their story the way they want it to be told, right? Mm-hmm. We are making sure that we're connecting all the dots. We're putting their best foot forward, right? We're giving what we call our happy number, when it comes to, compensation. Like we're making sure we're putting them in the best light possible to get what they want out of this, right? Like I said earlier, our goal is the mutual fit. So if we're not putting them in a better place, we're not going to submit them to our client. So when you work with us, we're making sure that we're moving you forward in the direction you want to be forward, and also finding you a company that we think is a really good match. So unfortunately, we can't place everybody, but the people that we can place, that's our goal.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's so few firms that are like you that specialize in customer success, which means there's probably just not a lot of folks working with these types of agencies. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands the pros and the cons, right? Like obviously to your point, you don't have an infinite amount of jobs available, right? It's not like going to apply for jobs on LinkedIn, but where there are roles that are a fit and you are able to help and get these candidates in front of these companies, you're doing so in a very thoughtful coaching manner that's helping hopefully land the best outcome for everyone. So that's awesome. So other things that I hear coming up, right? Sadly, and I say this seriously, like I see a lot of leaders right now that are so desperate to find work that they're actually applying to IC roles, and they're making the decision to say, you know what, I need a job, and so I'm willing to take a step back. What's your thoughts on how this might impact their long-term career trajectory? Some folks aren't even getting the interviews because they're overqualified, right? So it's even making it that much more challenging, that much more discouraging. It's like, I can't even get a lesser job. But how do you advise them to kind of navigate this? Is it something that they should be doing, something they should avoid? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really a big believer in going after what you think you deserve and where you're at, what you're leveling at, right? I know it's been a really tough market. And I know, people need jobs, right? But when it comes to your main career, right? I think you should target your leveling. You should target director roles, VP roles, CCO roles, if that's what you're at, because companies they don't want to hire somebody that is so many years ahead for the role, because they know that when things open back up and there are more roles, then they unfortunately you're going to move, and it makes sense. You want to continue your career, right? And you'll get it, right? People understand why people take different positions. I think we're all human, but I think it's really important to target what level you're at. I don't recommend targeting roles that are lower level than your skill set. And it's not really a step back in your career. It's more of like, it's disheartening because not a lot of people get those, and then companies know you're going to leave, and it's just not always a good experience. So I think that like if you just really focus on what you're really good at, or what your strengths are, or what you really want to do, it shines in interviews, and you're going to differentiate yourself in that way. And that's what I really encourage. I really don't encourage applying for IC roles if you're a leader, because it is really disheartening.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's sad, but I'm seeing all kinds of things come through my LinkedIn DMs, and it's like, every story is sadder than the last. All right, something else that I'm hearing come up from a lot of folks is they're scared to negotiate. So because there are so few far in between jobs, they make it to that last stage of offer. They're so excited, but the company might be offering them a salary that's not really in range with what they had hoped or what they feel like they should be earning, but they're scared to negotiate, right? They're scared. They're like, oh gosh, if I ask for a number that is so far off from what they're offering, they're going to pull the offer. They're going to give it to another candidate. How would you advise people, like, how do you navigate this fine balance of, like, I think navigating your own personal fears, but then also trying to find a compensation range that does align with your skill sets and what you bring to the organization?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think that when I you should always negotiate. You should always negotiate. When you're working with us, I think when you're working with a recruiting firm, negotiation is a little different, right? We kind of do that up front. We ask what your happy number is, what you want, and that's what we tell the organization. When you're applying on your own, it's a little different because usually salaries aren't discussed till later in stages. So I think that is one of the biggest differences when you're working with a firm versus applying on your own. But I do think negotiating is really important if you don't know what the salary range is and you're talking about at the end, right? And if it's a big difference, maybe talking about like, I was expecting this, is there any flexibility? And I think just being very open and having a conversation. I mean, I can tell you countless stories we've had where in final stages, like, a lot of us, like me, even sometimes, or candidates have been surprised. But as long as we're open for a dialogue, we figure it out, and it always works out better, actually. So I would just highly encourage people to have that conversation, even in this market, right? If they're giving you an offer, then you probably beat out hundreds and hundreds of applicants at this point. So they like you, they really like you, and they're probably willing to talk to you. They don't want to go through that whole process and hope to find another person like you. They found you. So talk to them and have an open conversation. And it might not be exactly what you want, but hopefully it's closer.
I love that advice. I mean, it's something that I see a lot of folks just trying to navigate. I always get sad and disheartened when I have candidates that, for me, come through my process and don't negotiate. I'm like, darn it.
Mhm.
And I always see patterns of the type of people that will negotiate versus those that don't. And I agree. Everyone should negotiate, right? What's the worst? It's like my daughter. I tell her all the time, like, what's the worst someone could say? No. Like, that's, but you don't get what you don't ask for. Okay. I'm going to ask one last question because, again, some stuff that I'm seeing pop up.
For
So
sure.
I'm also hearing from a lot of candidates that the interview process really isn't enabling them to interview the companies, meaning that they're not having enough time to ask questions when they're interviewing. And I think we all talk about and would agree that interviewing should be a two-way street, and the company should be asking questions, but should be allowing the candidates to ask questions as well. So that way, when everyone gets to the end of the process, you feel like you're making the best decision based off of all the information you've collected during the process. So how would you advise candidates who are going through the interview process and finding that they're not getting a lot of their questions answered, either because of lack of time or just not really
Mhm.
great responses, but they're feeling like, I don't have everything I need to make the best decision for me moving forward?
That is so important. I ask for more time. I would ask for more time. I mean, I think that if you have specific questions, right, when you are talking to your future manager or you're talking to another leader that you're going to be working closely with, right, especially if you're at final stages and you're like, oh my gosh, I have a lot more questions, ask for another interview, right? I know that's kind of strange, and you're like, I'm going to make the process longer, but yes, make the process longer and ask for another conversation. And whether it's and make sure you kind of know who you want to talk to, right? So you're like, I have a ton of questions. I want to talk to, my hiring manager and ask them about these things to make sure I can make the best decision. Or if it's for a different leader, just make sure it's a very specific ask. Or if they say, or ask for also like, hey, can I just put this in an email and get, responses from the entire team, right? You want to make sure you're making the best decision. You don't want to go in there and be like, I have this question I didn't ask, and now I'm in a situation that is not the best for me. So ask for that extra interview or ask for an email response, but make sure you find a way to get your questions answered, because I mean, people have limited time. right? So conversations are 45 minutes to an hour sometimes, and things run out, conversations go long. It happens all the time, but just make sure to ask, right? And they're gonna love that you care so much and that you're making a really thoughtful decision. And honestly, I think it's most of the time it's a very pleasant surprise.
I'll tell you a little pro tip that I do. So for anyone who is hiring, I actually schedule the last interview that I do with candidates is a Q&A just for them. It's an entire block of time as part of the process where they just ask questions. It's not even for us to learn anything more. And it's obviously towards the end where we've already probably decided that they are a strong fit for us, but we want to make sure that they're taking a leap, obviously well-informed and know everything that they need to make the best decision for them. So it's literally just a Q&A for them to ask questions. So if you are in charge of a hiring process and you can do something like that, I highly encourage it, because I will tell you, not only am I learning so much about the candidates based on the questions they're asking, which makes me actually learn more. And so I'm benefiting as the hiring manager, but you're giving them a space where they feel supported, they feel heard, they feel like this is an inclusive process, that you're a leader that cares about them. And it gets candidates excited about the opportunity. So if you can do something like that, I strongly recommend it. Is mutually beneficial, I promise you. Because you also find folks get there and they're like, oh, how many PTO days do I get? Or, just questions that are not helpful for anyone. And then I'm like, well, this is interesting. This is how you've chosen to use this time. So you'll learn a lot. All right, we do have a ton of
love that. Go ahead. Sorry. I absolutely love that. There's so many. We encourage all of our candidates to have a ton of questions prepared, because we've had interviews like that where they're like, well, what questions do you have? And the entire interview, even like first or second rounds, or sometimes just questions. And, we don't always know, the style. So it's always important to have a ton of questions prepared for each person. I love that.
Yeah, obviously we build in Q&A into every interview process. So if it's 45 minutes, we do 30 minutes of interview questions for the candidate, and then 15 minutes, that is literally, we're watching the clock. They get 15 minutes per person that's interviewing them, so they can ask unique questions to all the different people that they're meeting with. But then obviously the end one is like, now that you've learned everything based on the conversations you've had, you probably have very specific business related questions at this stage in the process. So come prepared to have a real dialogue. So you're walking into reality, is what I say, because if you don't know if you don't ask. And so many people walk into jobs that are a nightmare because they didn't know and they didn't ask the right questions.
Definitely.
All right, we do have some great questions in here. So I'm going to start with this one. So what are some ways to stand out in the sea of applicants? Every role I've applied for recently has hundreds of applicants. You spend a lot of time researching, personalizing your resume, only to get a form letter rejection back weeks later. So what is your advice to standing out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the market is tough right now, right? A lot of people are trying to stand out. My biggest advice is making sure that you are tailoring it to the best you can. And I think I was saying this about your resume, right? Making sure your summary is really strong, right? Talking about what you've been doing, why you want this position, why you want to work for this company. I mean, if you're tailoring it to that level, I think that really helps. And then under each position, the first 2 or 3 bullet points should be extremely tailored to the job, right? I know keywords sometimes get a bad reputation, but keywords are important. They're important on your LinkedIn, they're important on your resume, but I would say quality keywords, right? Not just putting all the keywords on there, but using them in the right way related to the position. I would say is the best way to stand out. And also, like, apply for something you're really excited about, right? It will shine through your resume and network. I mean, after applying, reach out to people that and let them know that you applied, and try to get an introduction if you can.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we've got another question here. So what tips do you have for someone looking to find their next role while working full time? So we also know what the life looks like as a CS professional, right? It's not 9 to 5. And so how do you juggle balancing finding a new job if you have one currently?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot, actually. It's really a slow and steady, right? Don't put so much pressure on yourself. I mean, if you have a timeline that you need to get out, I understand. But if you have a job and it's safe, especially in this market, I would say slow and steady. Give yourself, block out 30 minutes a day, right? Go through the steps we talk about. maybe for the first couple of weeks, you're just researching, right? Trying to figure out what your criteria is, trying to figure out what you're excited about, right? And then kind of you're going into, okay, now let me figure out the language. Now let me work on this piece, right? Go step by step, and I would go slow and steady, right? Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to leave right away, or if you don't have to. That would be my biggest advice, is don't rush the process, and block out like time daily.
I'm going to add one more thing to this because I love that advice, but also something I tell folks all the time. Like usually I'd offer this advice to friends, but since all of you are my best friends anyway, make sure that you're running towards something and not from something. And I think that is really important to distinguish, because sometimes we find ourselves in jobs that are not a good fit, right? We're unhappy with our leadership. The role isn't what was described, or maybe, hey, half the team has been laid off and now I'm taking on all this extra work and I'm not getting compensated for it, right? There's a lot of situations that net out that might be impacting your happiness factor in your current role. But please make sure that you're not taking the next job because it is the next job offered. That means you are running from something. Your next role should be thoughtful. It should be exciting, something you're passionate about. And I know that sounds like a luxury, but if you don't run to something, then you're going to find yourself in the exact same situation you are right now. So if you're looking for something, please, 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 that is my dear, sweet friendship advice to all of you, is like, run to something, not from something. I've done it myself, right? I was so desperate to get out of a role that I've taken things that weren't my optimal fit and something that I probably wouldn't have taken otherwise. So just be thoughtful about that if you're currently sitting in a role and you're looking for something new.
Yes, completely agree. And that's what the steps will help you with. It is step by step, right? You're being really thoughtful. I love that advice.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. We get some great questions. Okay, this one I like because I'm seeing this pop up a lot. How do you anticipate advancements in AI may impact the future job functions and hiring in CS?
Ooh, hiring, like for us, like our job will change?
I
Is
think
that the
like
question?
just well, I mean, Alexandra Baker was the person who asked. So if you want to go into the chat and clarify this for us, how I'm reading this is, how do you anticipate advancements in AI may impact the future of job functions? So I'm seeing AI impacting the role of the CS professional, and then it says, and hiring in CS. So I'm thinking maybe the criteria of the person applying for jobs, or it could be maybe even AI being part of like the screening process and all these other things, which I think a lot of technology. Oh, okay. I was right. Thanks. Okay. So the role and impact of AI in the CS role as a function.
Got it. I mean, I think that, a lot of people talk about this, right? We need to work with AI, right? I mean, I think all the post was all about that this year, is like it's learning AI. I think that's going to become more of a job requirement, right? It's going to be a skill that that unfortunately is going to become a requirement, right? I think all of these platforms, all of these tools that CSMs need every day are using AI. And if you can't continue to learn and grow and take initiative to like learn that, I think it's going to be harder and harder in the future to kind of grow with companies, because that's just becoming how they're doing work, right? Everyone's trying to do more and more and more every day. And AI is a huge tool for that. So I think when it comes to hiring, I think it's going to become a requirement. And there's going to be a lot of different tools in that. And I think when it comes to the hiring process, I think, the keywords, I know sometimes they get a bad reputation, but I do think that's going to be really important. But I think AI is going to get better and better at seeing when it's used with high quality versus just being like thrown in like on a resume or LinkedIn. Like I think it's going to get better and better at reading like the quality of the work and how someone's tailoring their resume.
Awesome. I know that we're running up on time. I got one question left that I feel like is so important, because there's an emotional aspect to what we're all going through. So someone had asked, I'm currently interviewing for a company and it's crazy waiting in between rounds. How do I manage my anxiety in between this? I know it seems like out of context, but I think this is an important thing to address, because not only, I mean, like, listen, you're fortunate enough to be in rounds, but I think that there's a lot of folks that are just anxious about the entire process. So what advice would you have for folks? And like, how do we navigate and manage the emotional aspect of applying in this climate?
I mean, anytime we're applying, especially now, it is so challenging. I would say just ask a lot of questions. Know the process in and out. Know when you're going to hear back. Ask questions about when you're going to hear back. Make sure you're sending your thank you notes, right? Some of it is action oriented, making sure you're doing the things so you know that all your, T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. But also know when you're going to expect from them, right? Ask the questions, and if you don't hear from them, follow up, right? So you know, hey, I have 2 days or I have 3 days. If I don't hear back, I'm going to follow up. Not only does that show initiative, but now you know there's nothing you can do for a couple of days. You just got to wait, but you have a timeline, right? The most anxiety I see when people, didn't ask those questions. They didn't ask about next steps. They don't know when to hear back. And, make sure you follow up. Don't, if they don't get back to you, follow up. That will not only reduce your anxiety, but it'll also show initiative and show you're really invested in the process.
I love that. All right, guys. Well, listen, I know that we are at time. Hey, Swati, there's a ton of other questions in the chat. So I'm just going to advise anyone, if you are still on and if you've made it to the end of this, thank you so much. Please reach out to Swati directly via LinkedIn or head over to the website, shoot her a note, ask her these great questions, because all this is so important. We want everyone to feel as supported as possible as we're navigating these times, and especially this process. It's so important. So just want to thank everyone for their time today. Appreciate it. This is our last session in this webinar series for the summer. So this summer is coming to an end. Sadly, back to school has started. So we will be kicking off a new webinar series. Stay tuned. More to come on that. Swati, thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and sharing with our community. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. This was so much fun. Please reach out if you have more questions. I loved our dialogue and I loved this. So please reach out. Happy to help as many of you as I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.